Good morning, everyone, and I will try to be as brief as possible. So we're going to talk about the Institute, a brief history, but then the contribution to fisheries, ICZM, and the conservation of coastal resources. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this. So next slide, please, Vera. Anna. Oh. Okay. So, a brief history of the IOE. I think most of the participants already know us and we know them. So, the Institute is a multidisciplinary institute at the heart of the University of Balaman. We're getting close to our, how do you want to say this, 15 years of establishment. The Institute addresses pressing environmental concerns through scientific research and public action. And we rely mainly on grants and soft funds. So hopefully MSP Global could support us, Vera, with some of the studies. Yani, I did just a point. So we partner with institutions all across the Mediterranean, and our actual motto is to promote science as the basis for decision making. So all decision making processes we believe should be based on science. The Institute hosts currently 3 programs: the Environmental and Energy Economics program, the Land and Natural Resources Program, and the Marine and Coastal Resources Program, which we'll be talking about today. And this program focuses on understanding and managing issues that are concerned with the coastal zone and its associated resources. So coastal zone is the land part and the marine part all the way to the continental shelf. We don't work on deep sea research or anything. We concentrate our work on the shallow areas and the continental shelf. Next, please. So our themes of interest are fisheries management, coastal dynamics like beach erosion, currents, etc., accretion. We are actually moving into waves and current profiling for specific areas. We try our best to predict natural hazards and how to manage that kind of risk. We promote the deployment of artificial reefs that we will talk about a little bit. We work on threatened species and conservation, marine pollution indicators. One of our main interests is the human impacts on coastal environment within the context of sustainable development. And one of our major axes is strategic planning, building political will, and developing programs for integrated coastal zone management, marine protected areas, and of course, we believe in awareness raising and capacity building, being an academic institution. And we truly believe that we need to have a community that is well knowledgeable and supportive of ICZM and marine conservation issues for, if you want to say, for goals to be achieved. Next. So, in general, the MCR, or the Marine and Coastal Resources Program, in a snapshot, since our establishment in 2005, actually, we have approximately 40 publications in terms of reports, journal articles, conference papers, awareness training materials, book chapters, and we rely quite a bit on master theses. So far, we have more than 6 master theses on marine issues. Some are in scientific publications, others are basically cataloged at the library. In terms of projects, since our establishment, we have landed 22 projects that are externally funded. In fishery, 35% of these projects relate to fisheries, 61% relate to coastal management and ICZM, and the others are just miscellaneous projects. Since we rely on external funding, also since our establishment, specifically for the MCR, we were able to generate approximately $3 million worth of funds, with, as you can see, 74% of them are EU-funded projects. We have 4% FAO, 5% United Nations, 1% our work with the Ministry of Environment, which we have a very good collaboration with. It goes ups and downs, but in general, it's good. And others also represent approximately 16%, which are spread all over the field of marine sciences. Next. Next, من عندي ولا من عندك, Vera? Okay. So the main actions that are related to fisheries, the next one, Kevin. The main actions that are related to fisheries management are, okay, the first one is the monitoring of commercial fish species landings and efforts. We developed a system for monitoring catch and effort for the Ministry of Agriculture. that we actually called it FLUCA, Fish Landing Operational Utility for Catch Assessment. And this has been developed into two different systems. So one we call web-based, the other is beta. Beta is more related to cooperatives that we are trying to actually institute currently. The first project we did was a pilot survey on fisheries-dependent data collection in Lebanon, including training. It was for the benefit of the Ministry of Agriculture. The funding agency was the FAO EastMed project, and the objective was to establish long-term monitoring of commercial fish species landings and effort to contribute to developing appropriate management plans. I think Dr. Imad Lahoud from the Ministry of Agriculture, if he joined, he will talk more about this. So I will not expand on this. But the interesting thing is that what we developed for Lebanon, we landed another project that is EU funded for the benefits of the Ministry of Agriculture Development, Sustainable Development and Fisheries in Algeria, where we introduced the FLUCA utility as the monitoring system for the fisheries and aquaculture sectors for the country of Algeria. This was implemented by us in partnership with Incatima, and currently Algeria has approximately the same system we have, but in different ways, of course, since we took the first patented system, not the one of the Ministry of Agriculture. So this is in fisheries. Next. Next. هودي ما بيروحوا مني الدقايق ايه فيرا؟ هودي عليكي.
لا it just takes a few seconds for the connection to happen.
Hey, howdy, you don't subtract them from my 5 minutes. So we also have a lot of initiatives. I'll just putting the main ones here that target local fishermen. Currently, we have a project with Fair Trade Lebanon, which we are working on the gender-sensitive value chain analysis of the agri-food sector. Our team is working on the fisheries component of this, and the objectives of this is to provide a value chain data analysis that addresses both genders, of course, but identifies and analyzes trends. More importantly, of how to be able to integrate women within the fisheries sector in terms of value-added products. We just want to see where fisher women could actually fit within the value chain and women who are also interested in this. So we just started this. We're going through the interviews, and I think most of the participants have been contacted for key informant interviews that hopefully we'll be able to come up with something here. We also worked on a local scale where we assessed the socioeconomic status of fisheries sector in Amphi, because Amphi has a great potential to become a model for other regions in Lebanon. And this was to assess the need for new fishing equipment and support capacity building and improvement of the well-being of fishermen and their communities in Amphi. And we also emphasized the gender issue and the integration of women in the fisheries sector also. When we first started with the Marine and Coastal Resources Program, we collaborated with Ramoj in southern France, and to work on the collection and identification of solid wastes in the nets of fishermen. And that was one of the first projects we did. That was in 2005 with the fishermen, to actually understand the source and the quantity of solid waste that is caught in the nets of fishermen and be able to translate this into economic loss and to put some dollar values on the losses that fishermen incur from solid wastes in terms of effort and in terms of products. Next. Another big project that we worked on in fisheries is the implementation of what's called the ecosystem approach to fisheries. As we all recognize today, that all of the research and all of the management approaches are more related to ecosystems than species-specific management. So what we actually did here is that through the FAO EastMed project also, we collaborated with them for the benefit of the Ministry of Agriculture, and the team was with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we implemented what we call a pilot case study on the ecosystem approach to fisheries, where we developed a management plan for the purse seine fishery, more specifically concentrating on the sardine fishery, how to regulate it from a socioeconomic perspective also, because you have ecological, economic, and social aspects to the ecosystem approach to fish. So the plan is ready. It's at the Ministry of Agriculture. And I hope that Mr. Imad Lahoud will be able to expand on this. We delivered it to them, and I think they are starting to work on it. Also, this generated another project within the same context where we were funded by FAO to develop the PSSF, or the purse seine fishery management plan for the country of Eritrea. And we finalized this at the end of 2019, where Eritrea also has a management plan for its purse seine fishery, also concentrating mostly on sardines and anchovies and things like this. So we have these also that are local and national and international, the same way as the monitoring system. Next. Now, in terms of actions related to integrated coastal zone management, we can move to the next slide. As Mr. Yaoub from the Ministry of Environment stated, that there's a draft law that was, we were subcontracted to develop that draft law and to develop the strategy for the benefit of the Ministry of Environment and all marine and coastal stakeholders. So we identified legal policy institutional gaps, and we drafted the policy reforms for the protection of coastal and marine biodiversity. So we produced an updated draft law of ICZM because there were two versions before that. And we had an updated draft strategy for integrated coastal zone management. And we are happy to hear that the unit at the MOE that is responsible for this is actually moving forward, because I think there were some challenges when we first submitted it. And we hope that these will be ironed out and the draft law will be updated to meet the current requirements. Another project that was funded by the United Nations, or the UNEP Environment Program, and it targeted mostly coastal municipalities. It's the ERML, where we produced 3 reports to improve the understanding of the environmental quality in Lebanon and the implications for the Lebanese population. More specifically, we identified the coastal sensitive sites in terms of ecological and cultural values. We also produced a report on the institutional and legal assessments, where we analyzed the laws and we put some recommendations forward. Another project that actually kickstarted all our work in coastal zone management was the IMAC project that was funded by the EU, the European Commission. It targeted North Lebanon, and more specifically also coastal municipalities, because ICZM specifically is more of a local initiative. So it's very important for the local communities to be involved with the umbrella of the national government. And here we produced also a strategy for North Lebanon. We did quite a few maps of land use and maritime planning for aquaculture and other, if you want to say, uses of the resources of the coastal resources. Next. I'm trying to go as quickly as possible. So in terms of biodiversity and conservation, come in next, please, Vera. We are promoters of artificial reefs, and we believe that artificial reefs are important and essential today all around the world, given the stresses that exist on marine ecosystems. And since we have all of these pressures, we believe that intervention should be done very early in order to avoid the mistakes or the delays in interventions on the terrestrial environment, and we see what this has led to. So now we are currently implementing a project for the deployment of artificial reefs funded by the European Union. It's currently ongoing, and the objective is to enhance the protection and sustainability of marine biological resources in Lebanon through the design and deployment of ARs. This is we have a committee, and we collaborate a lot with the Lebanese Army and the Lebanese Navy, who were present with us during the deployment in July. Dr. Milad Fakhri also were there, but due to the corona, we could not, or the COVID-19, we could not hold the events that we wanted to hold. So let's hope that next year or next summer we'll be able to be physically present and hold a big conference on this. Another thing is that in 2012, we deployed the first official artificial reef in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment, etc., and the Ministry of Transport and Public Works, where we deployed, and the Army, who provided all of the material. They provided us with 3 heavy tanks that we cleaned up and we removed all of the contaminants from. They provided us with vans, etc., that we also enhanced by cementing them, by creating more areas for organisms to attach. and for creating the habitat, and they were deployed off the coast of Abdi. So now we have one in Abdi, one in Mount Lebanon, which is the one that we are currently doing, and in Saida there is what is called the underwater garden, I think they called it, where also the Lebanese army provided equipment for the deployment of an artificial reef of the Zire in Saida. Also, we always hear in the news that some items were deployed in one place or the other. So the issue of artificial reefs, I think, should be better regulated. And when all of this mess works out in the country, in this peace-loving nation of ours, hopefully we will be able to sit down and think about what to do with the artificial reefs and to declare them as marine protected areas if possible. So this is something that has to be done in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment, of course, and all of the stakeholders. Next. So in terms of habitat degradation and conservation, we are currently also finalizing an IUCN funded action to assess climate change impacts on Lebanon's coastal zone. So we wrote the status report on climate change and the impact of climate change on the coastal zone of Lebanon. We identified a hotspot for intervention through that, and we are in the process of finalizing the awareness booklet in order to be produced and distributed. Another big thing, maybe it relates more to the theme of the webinar today. It's the evolution of the Lebanese shoreline between 1962 and 2010. So we purchased all of the aerial photographs from the Lebanese army. We orthorectified them, we digitized them, and we compared them to 1970, 1994, and the 2010. We're just going to put the final results. So how did the coastline of Lebanon change? First and foremost, please look at your right-hand side. When you see that the shoreline length in 1962, if you draw it on GIS and you use remote sensing and GIS techniques, it is actually 300 kilometers. It's not the 225 that we are always taught in school and in our books. But this is because we take in the valley, we take in the bays and all of the small changes on the coastline. On the other hand, if you compare 1962 to 2010, you see that this approximately increased by 70 kilometers over a shoreline of 300 kilometers. And this is due to sea filling, redmiyat, and everything that we actually throw into our coastal area, destroying habitats, changing currents, changing sediment regimes, and all of those things. So you will see that in approximately 50 years, we increased our coastline by 70 kilometers. This is not something to be proud of, by the way. It's something that we should be ashamed of. On the other hand, when we look at erosion, if you look at the left-hand side, we see that between 1962 and 2010, we lost approximately 2.5 million square meters of sand over an area that is very, very small. If you think about the Lebanese coast, 80% of it is rocky and 20% of it is sandy. So when we say 2.5 million square kilometers, we are talking approximately about 60 kilometer area out of the 300. In terms of accretion, we see that it's very, very minimal, and it doesn't offset in any way or form the erosion rates that have actually occurred on the coastal zone, exposing us to more hazards. Of course, with sea level rise today and the intensification of storms, we see that this is going to be a major problem in the decades to come. In terms of sea filling, we hate the word reclamation, because reclamation, we think it's a politically correct word, or a political word, basically, because reclamation is to take back something that you have lost. We are not reclaiming. When we sea fill, when we actually dump things into our coastal area, what we are doing is that we are just taking away. We are not reclaiming anything. And we see that between 1962 and 2010, more than 8 million square meters were actually sea filled into our coastal area, and these are completely adjacent to the shoreline. So they affect human populations directly, changing, like we said, coastal regimes in terms of dynamics and currents and things like this. Well, if you see what has been removed, doesn't even compare, about 4,000 meters square. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed in a very serious way in Lebanon, because we don't have many places left. and this is completely blocking access of the population to the maritime public domain, which is their right. On top of this, of all of the changes and the destruction to the marine environment, and we always ask ourselves, why our fish disappearing, why we don't have any more spawning grounds. This is not the only cause, but it's one of the main causes that should be addressed in terms of food security, not only in terms of conservation and biodiversity. I think this is it. Next. Thank you. But of course, we have a lot more small actions that we couldn't put it up there, and hopefully we'll be able all to collaborate on the future of the coastal zone. Thank you, everyone.